I got to ask you guys a question. In fact, before I do, I want to tell you a little story. So I had a really good friend of mine, they're basically family, who hit me up, and he actually is the IT guy at his church, and it's not because he is an IT guy. He's just the guy at this
Who
particular
knows more
location
than
that knows the
everybody
most, that
else?
knows the most,
Right.
So he's like, man, this is like the third time in like the last year that our Facebook has got hacked. And I'm like, whenever I hear somebody say Facebook and hacked, I first have to ask you, what do you mean by hacked? Do you mean that somebody literally has hacked your account, or do you mean that somebody's got your password and was messing around in your account? And he's like, yeah, it's probably the latter. So I'm like, so basically, explain to me what's going on. Let me make a long story short. Somebody who has the password
Well,
to their
before you go, before you continue, number one, are they getting paid to be the IT person at their church? And then number two, did this person contract you to where you can send an invoice to where they can kind of help you resolve this issue?
no. This was not that type. I'm certain
Okay.
that he's not, because I know how small this church is. This is probably he's just volunteering to do this,
Which is
as
my
as
gripe.
is everybody else. And here's part of the problem, that it's like, well, what kind of security do you have set up? There's no security.
There's no
Everybody uses the same
security.
account to log into Facebook, and it's like,
Because
so
they
no, you're
ain't
not
paying
getting hacked.
nobody.
This somebody who has the password is just messing around with the account. It's
Acting
like,
up. Yep.
so, and it's like, he's like, yeah, it's just easier. You got to realize the folks I'm dealing with. If I'm the IT guy, then how bad it is for some of the other members of this of this particular church. So he's like, yeah, that's probably what it is. Somebody has it. So I'm like, well, how are you sharing the password around? And then he sends me, he's like, man, we got a spreadsheet. So they literally have an open spreadsheet with
Wow.
about 9 or 10 different accounts, and then the password for each of the accounts. And then in the third field, it actually has do not change or do not use. It doesn't, if you have to tell somebody don't change or don't use, then you probably shouldn't be giving them the password to whatever it is you're using. So it just got me to thinking. I know that Microsoft, Google, as well, and I want to say even Apple, they're trying to move past passwords. Passwords are, they have been the bane for many people's existence for many, 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 many years. So my question to you guys, is it time that we move beyond passwords to where we start doing, more two-factor authentication, more, you have this thing that uniquely identifies you in addition to your, an email address or a username or something like that, but it's not a password. What are your thoughts on just, getting past passwords?
Well, in particular to your story, that's one of my biggest gripes with church, especially black churches. Because I grew up in black churches. You need People need to take it seriously enough to do the job. So you need to start paying people. So that would be my first thing. It's like these church, even if it's just like a couple dollars or shoot them an invoice or whatever the case may be. But that goes to the bigger point. I think we need to take passwords in general more seriously.
Yeah.
Because most people still feel, hey, I'm just little old me. Ain't nobody looking for me. If they
Right.
hack me, all they gonna get is pictures of my grandkids or
Right.
whatever this little $12 I got in my pocket. That's the extent of how you're gonna hack me. But people don't realize like the extent of what things that people can do. So they don't take them seriously. So that'd be my first thing is taking your security, specifically online, seriously enough to where you're not to doing things like keeping passwords in Excel spreadsheets. But going forward, getting away from passwords, that would take a long time because, again, I don't think everybody is technologically, no matter how easy it is, like you mentioned, Apple, they make it super easy. If you have an Apple ID, you have a password manager. And all you got to do is on one of your devices, go to a website, enter a password, and automatically they're like, look, let us save this for you. And all you gotta do is click yes. And you ain't gotta think about it no more. So even though they're putting in a password, they're doing it for you, but you don't have to think about it. You don't have to remember what it is. And if you need to, you can actually go into your settings and then recall it. But I think it's going to take for people's mentally to like get to that point to where it's like, all right, no matter how trivial, no matter how many times I'm going to use this account, no matter what it's for, I still have to actually take passwords seriously.
Yeah, the idea, I mean, I think we do need to get to a point where we're thinking about some other mechanism for security. I took a look at the article you posted with this question, Rob, and it's like, 18 billion password attacks every year. It's like 579 a second. So, that type of, criminal cyber activity is only going to get worse. And so, passwords just aren't the solution, and they can't be the solution because they're not going to scale to combat 18 billion hacks a year. So we do definitely have to get away from them at some point. How that happens, is and when the timeline for it, I think is a little further down the road than any of us would care for. But I do agree that passwords do eventually need to go away.
So I would imagine that most of the people who are listening to us or watching us are probably the type who their phone is probably no more than 10 feet away from them at pretty much any given time throughout the 24 hours of the day. I would say most folks are like that. I think, however, when it comes to to people who have the most problems with passwords, I don't want to call them, Luddites. I don't want to say that they're like anti-technology, but they're just not tech savvy at all. So I'm thinking about like, trying to get someone to do two-factor authentication. It's like that might actually be more difficult than to just get them to just change their password. So there's those type of things. And the next part of this is that, like what I did for my, for a buddy is like, hey, you need to get a password vault or a password manager that you're using, where you can share passwords without actually sharing passwords. And that you can control, you can see where passwords are being used, all those kind of things. And it's not terribly expensive. You're talking $50-$60 a year to be able to do that. But because you've had so many issues, the problems that you've had are probably worth the amount that you would spend for the 6, 7, 8 people who you keep recycling the passwords through. And it's like, when I just know that if you have a spreadsheet and 8 people have access to the spreadsheet, more than 8 people have access to the spreadsheet.
Absolutely.
There's more than that. So that's how the passwords are. Like I said, you're not getting hacked. It's just somebody who knows the account, password is logging in. This is a true story. My mother-in-law, she was saying, I keep getting hacked. It's like, no, you're not getting hacked. It's another family member that's messing with you because you won't change your password. Now, the other family member might have been me, but it's like, you're not changing your password. Your password is you use the same password on everything. So for her to try to get her to use a password manager, I tried. It just didn't work. So basically, I am now the password manager. She knows her password for her checking account, has that committed to memory. She knows her password for Facebook, has that committed to memory. Every other password, hey son, how do I log into this?
Well,
hey son, how do I...
Is she logging into that many different devices at this
No,
point?
she's not. It is
because you could set her up and then that type of thing auto populate. I know my LastPass auto populates like everything, so I don't even have to worry about it. So can you set her up with the extension in her browser to auto populate and then the app on
it's
her phone?
even easier. She doesn't use a computer. She only uses a phone and a phone and a tablet. It would even be easier for her.
That, I mean, I don't know. It's like I said, I use it and it auto populates, so I don't even. Yeah. And then if she's using apps, like I said, is she logging out of the applications every time? Because once you log in once, shouldn't you just, well, not your bank, definitely not your bank, but like social media and different stuff like that, shouldn't she be
so like I said,
logged in?
She's good with Facebook. She's actually good with her cell phone company because she'll log in there, regularly, check her bill and that kind of stuff, see where she is on her minutes, or not minutes, but on her data. Because she doesn't have like home internet. Her only internet is what she gets through her phone and tablet. So she'll check that. But we're talking about 3. And for her, it was like, okay, well, you do need to be able to log in to this thing, and you need to be able to log into that thing, and you need to be able to log into the other thing. And my concern for her was that she was just using the same password on everything. So I took it upon myself. I'd rather you be secure and just be, because it's not like it's regularly, that she's calling and saying, "Hey, how do I log into this?" And she's usually not even calling me. It's usually she's calling my wife anyway. And it's just when they're having their general every other day conversation. But I've been trying to get everyone that I know. Stephanie, you said LastPass. I've been using LastPass for years, and I'm a huge fan of it. I'm not saying that they're the best, but it works. It does what it does. It's super convenient,
robust.
So I'll just kind of start to table this, but should
there.
folks like
Shout
said
out to LastPass if they want to sponsor Detect Joan.
or any password manager for that matter. But here's my question for you. So, and Terrance, you kind of alluded to this with Apple. It's kind of built in if you have an Apple device. Well, it's kind of built in if you use Chrome or use Safari or use Firefox. They all have, I guess technically they are password managers, but at the very least, should people be using these? Because my concern is the person that has the same password for 17 different services. One of them gets hacked, and now all of them have been hacked.
That's the only way, in my opinion. That's the only way. Well, that's one of the ways people will start to see the importance of managing passwords correctly is when they get hacked. Again, it goes back to my, little old me, I'm not of worth to where somebody is like, all right, let me go find Terrance Gaines because I want something specifically from him.
They don't understand that nobody's looking for them specifically. They're just looking for general.
A whole.
Yeah,
Yep.
if you have a Bank of America account and Bank of America gets hacked, your information is going along with the hack.
And then again, it's not important until it's important, and that just goes with people in general. It ain't important until I'm affected directly. When I'm affected directly, Rob, if your mom calls you or your wife in the middle of the night, like, hey, this crazy thing happened, and now y'all got to go into all this digging and research and figure out,
or I got all these charges on my credit card.
Exactly, I got all these charges, and then you hit her with, all right, now we got to do X and Y. She's like, okay, son.
Yeah, but this is immediate family. I got to take steps to make sure that doesn't happen. Therefore, I literally have all of her passwords in my LastPass. That way, if ever she asks, like, hang on a second, I can just, because I always have my phone right next to me, and I can pull it up and tell her what it is. And so that's my mother-in-law. I have an aunt who I was trying to get her to use. It might have been 1Password or something like that. And she didn't like the fact that it was going to make her have a minimum security on the password.
I don't think
I'm like,
get a lot of adoption on password managers. I think the password-less society is going to come when we really figure out the biometric login to it. I mean, password managers are phenomenal. If you know kind of deal, and the people that are going to use them are going to use them, but they're not seamless. They're very easy, and the user interface is very easy, but they're not seamless. So until we can get some biometric where it's just like, Face ID and everything all the time, everywhere, people just ain't gonna do it.